Man, I flew Southwest this past week, and so you could be 100 other places. You could have flown 100 other places, but you decided to be here. So thank you. They always tell us that. Like, you could have chosen 100 different airlines, but you chose us. So I feel like I want to thank you for choosing to be here this morning. I know you didn't have to. Hopefully you don't feel that way. Hopefully you felt like you wanted to be here. So I'm glad. Hopefully that's the case. If not, if you didn't feel like you wanted to be here this morning, I hope when you leave, you were glad you came and you feel like maybe you want to come back. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's our win today. So we'll see how this goes, right? I'll just be honest. I'll share with you. I love when God speaks messages, when he becomes incredibly clear. If you've ever been in that place where you've been praying about something or seeking God's will, seeking God's direction, and he becomes abundantly clear about it. I love when he does that because I'm kind of dense. What troubles me is he sometimes becomes abundantly clear to me about 2 o'clock in the morning. And so we rewrite messages. And so that's kind of what happened here. A lot of things God had been working in my heart and life on, and some things that transpired over this past week that just seemed like he was speaking volumes. And so I will try to hand back to you a little bit of what he's given to me. Let me just share with you. Oftentimes when God does that to me, first of all, I thank him. Then he and I have these intense discussions about, couldn't you tell me earlier? And he says you weren't listening earlier, and all these kinds of things. But the bulk of what he speaks to me mostly is for me. Because I got stuff I got to figure out and work through in my life. But some of that I feel like might be valuable to pass to you this morning. And so I pray that God, first of all, gets all the glory, and that maybe we listen to what he's wanting to say to each of us, maybe collectively and maybe individually. So this morning, for a few minutes, I want to talk to you about this church. So if you're new to Cornerstone, if you're kind of relatively new, you picked a great Sunday to be here. Because we're going to kind of pull the curtain back a little bit and share with you a little bit about what we're all about this morning. For those of you that are members here at Cornerstone, I'm going to share some stuff you've probably heard a lot already or a bunch of times, but I believe it's really important from time to time to remember where we came from, to evaluate where we're at, and then consider where we're going. And so I'm going to try to do all of that in about 30 minutes or so. And I understand it's the or so that gets everybody worried. I get that. Trust me, I feel your pain. I understand that. So for those of you that didn't know, last month, actually on May 18th, we celebrated our 17th birthday here as a church. Yeah, you can clap for that. Yeah, we give God the glory for that. It wasn't anything we did. It's all about what he did. So we're kind of in that awkward stage. We're 17, so we're kind of in that stage between we've got a driver's license, but we can't vote. We're in that. That's kind of where we're at as a church. We're kind of in that phrase, in that stage of life. But Cornerstone began as a church planting endeavor back in 2000, sent out by the First Missionary Baptist Church of Redlands, California, and they sent me out as a missionary church planter, along with my wife and my oldest daughter, Caitlin, along with some of our closest friends and family. And I just won't take up a bunch of time this morning kind of recounting all the God stuff that God did to pull this group of people together and to move us from Southern California to South Central Wisconsin. But suffice it to say, God did a lot of amazing things. And I'm grateful for all the things that he did, even the things that didn't seem like made sense at all. But now in retrospect, so grateful it went that way, the way God decided. But over the last 17 years, God has blessed us tremendously, as many of you have joined in the roller coaster ride, right, that we call Cornerstone. You've prayed and you've given and you surrendered and you've committed and you've served. And Ryan started out this morning. We started out the song, the morning's music with "Blessed Be Your Name," and Ryan asked us to share blessings, and we talked more and more about that, and we transitioned to what we believe. And one of the things I thought I was going to talk about this a little bit, so it didn't make sense for me to say it twice. But let me just share with you, some of the greatest blessings in my life are sitting in this room right now. And I'm so grateful for you. It would be a serious understatement, but I absolutely love this church. Not this location. I like the location. This is fine. It works. It's air conditioned. Lights come on. That's all good stuff. But I love the people of Cornerstone. So understand, when I use the word church, it means nothing about a place. It's everything about a people. And I'm grateful for the people here at Cornerstone. Our family has been incredibly loved and blessed by you. I've said this before, but Carrie and I are completely satisfied customers of Cornerstone because we entrusted our family to you, and you all loved us and ministered to us and blessed us beyond measure. This is the only church my girls have really ever known, and I'm grateful for the way you've cared for them. As a church, we've seen God's hand and experienced God's blessings in so many ways, and I believe wholeheartedly it's because of many of you that are sitting in here this morning. So here's the one thing, or one of the things, I love and I believe about Cornerstone. I believe we continue to be a church on mission. And our mission comes from Jesus himself, and it's non-negotiable, right? So there's a lot of things we grew up in church doing that, to be honest with you, there's no Bible verse for it. We just kind of do it because we always did it. We'll talk about that a little bit in just a second. But one of the things that's non-negotiable is our mission, because it came from Jesus himself. And here's what Jesus said our mission must be, right? As a local church, this is what the mission must be. He said, therefore, go and make disciples of all the nations. Actually, that word nations is ethnoids, all ethnicities. Go and make disciples of all the nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Teach these new disciples to obey all the commands. I don't know about any, I grew up with these verses. And when we get to that point, to teach these new disciples to obey all the commands I've given you. That word all used to freak me out. Like all? Like all? How many commands did Jesus give? Yeah, 2, and then he kind of narrowed it down to 1, really. He said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, your soul, your mind, your strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. And then, on the night that he would be betrayed and arrested and go to the cross, you remember what he said to his huddle, to his local church, his small group of followers, believers? Do you remember what he said to them? He says, I'm going to give you a new command. They're like, okay, so we have 2, we're going to add 1 to it. He's like, no, we're going to take 2 and it's going to basically become 1. You know what he said? He said, love one another the way I've loved you. So that word all shouldn't freak us out too much, right? Teach these new disciples to obey all the commands I've given you. All 2, maybe 1 of them. Love each other the way God loves us. Matter of fact, I'll be honest with you, you can't love God if you're not loving other people. So if you think, well, I'm loving God, but I don't love that person, you're not loving God. So if we love other people well, the way God loves us, the way Jesus has given himself and loved us, then we're fulfilling the commands, all of them that Jesus gave to us. Does that make sense? I know some of you are going to argue, like, there's more commands in there. Great, knock yourself out. Try to follow all of them. That's perfect. Good luck. And then he says this, and be sure of this, I'm with you always, even to the end of the age, right? So Jesus says, in essence, that in every place where my name is named, where my local assemblies gather, there should be more and more people hearing about me. There should be more and more people encountering the gospel. There should be more and more people seeing love and feeling love. There should be more and more people experiencing grace and truth. And there should ultimately be more and more people following Jesus. That's kind of what he said. I know I took that and reworked it, but that's in essence what he says. I like to condense it down and say it this way. Our mission here at Cornerstone is to help people know Jesus and grow in their relationship with him. We kind of take those 2 verses, those things that Jesus said, and kind of boil it down to one simple statement. Our mission here at Cornerstone is to help people know Jesus, intimately know him, and grow in their relationship with him, which means our faith enlarges. Our faith becomes bigger. We believe God is who he said he is, and so we trust him for who he is, and we follow him because of who he is. That's what it should look like. Here's the problem. The problem is, the longer a church is around, the easier it is to fall into an insider-focused approach. The longer a church exists, the easier it is to fall into an insider-focused approach. The gravitational pull of the local church is inward. The problem is our purpose and our approach disconnect from one another. We believe our purpose is to go and make disciples, but our approach doesn't seem to support our purpose. And so here's the crazy thing. If your approach doesn't support your purpose, you will never fulfill your purpose. It's one thing, we sang the song, I believe, right? I believe in God the Father. I believe in Jesus Christ. I believe. We say these things that we believe, The problem is if we don't behave as if we believe, we will never fulfill truly what we believe. And that's the problem with the local church often. And I get to take a full swing because I'm a pastor of a local church. So you're like, he shouldn't be talking about the local church like that. No, I actually get to because I pastor one. So I feel like I'm exempt. I can say these things because I'm part of that. The problem is the gravitational pull of the local church is always inward. And what happens is that we can lose sight of our mission and begin focusing more on tradition. We can begin to fixate on items of personal preference like music styles and Bible versions and clothing choices and committee appointments and favorite programs and favorite speakers and forget that our marching orders from Jesus Christ himself was to go and make disciples. That's what we're supposed to be about. That's the heartbeat of the gospel. That's the heartbeat of Jesus. If we're not careful, we'll find ourselves spending more time focusing on preferences or working on policies than we will loving our neighbors and sharing Jesus with them. And it happens in local churches all the time. We become very insider-focused. One of the problems with an insider focus is we become more consumed with trying to keep people or trying to keep people happy or trying to control people than we are trying to reach people. And that's dangerous. It derails our purpose. It derails the mission. We become maintainers of the aquarium rather than fishers of men. Unfortunately, we can become more focused on the traditions inside the church than we are on the mission of the church. We like to maintain and preserve our bubble. Jesus never said that. He never commissioned that. He never sent us forth with that mindset. I witnessed firsthand this past week the dangerous path churches can travel when they begin to have an insider focus, when they believe that the church is only for church people. That is a dangerous path. It's an offensive path. When they start to behave like the church is for the people that look like them and talk like them and think like them and behave like them. That is a dangerous path to travel. And that's not the path that Jesus sent us on at all. And I'll be honest with you, I don't want to be a part of a church like that. Ever. Ever. That believes all we have to do is keep maintaining our little bubble, our little fishbowl, and we want to get everybody in to think like us and behave like us and act like us and look like us and talk like us. Let me share with you, that's not who Jesus came to die for. It wasn't the church people. He had some things to say to the church people, and most of them were pretty harsh. It was the people that didn't look anything like him that he continued to draw. What's interesting is that 2,000 years ago, the first century churches struggled with the same problem. Most of you know that the early churches in the first century were primarily made up of Jews, right? They were Jewish people with their Jewish traditions and their 613 Jewish laws, along with their Jewish scriptures that talked about a Jewish Messiah. And they believed that Jesus was the fulfillment of those prophecies. So the idea was, since Jesus was a Jew, they often looked at Christianity as nothing more than just an extension of Judaism. That's kind of how they looked at it. It's like we're Jews, and we have a Jewish scripture, and we have Jewish laws, and there's a Jewish Messiah, and because the Messiah is a Jew, then this is just an extension of Judaism. To the degree, they believe this to the degree that many of them held on to the belief that if you were going to be a Jesus follower, then you first needed to become a Jew. If you were going to become pleasing to God, then you also must become Jewish, which meant a serious commitment if you were a male Gentile wanting to follow Jesus. Leave it there. Read your Bible. It's good stuff. What that means. Talk to your parents or something. They can fill you in. I'm not going to fill you in on what that meant. Here's the thing, though. I don't know what the requirements were for your past membership in your previous church experiences. What I'm pretty confident in saying is it probably didn't require surgery to join, right? Yeah, so just think about that. All right, so within some of the early churches, conflicts began to arise over the topic of rules and procedures and tradition. Many of those on the inside said that you need to step up and follow our traditions if you really want to be a part of us and follow Jesus and be pleasing to God. That's what they said. There were people inside the church that said, hey, if you really want to be a Jesus follower, if you really want to be a part of us, if you really want to be pleasing to God, then you need to get on board and follow our traditions, the traditions that we have here in this place. And then you had guys like the Apostle Paul and Barnabas who said, no way. Nope, that's not what it's about. It's not about embracing tradition. It's about trusting Jesus and following Jesus and being transformed by Jesus. That's what they were arguing back. And all of this came to a head in Jerusalem about 20 years after the resurrection of Jesus. Acts 15, this whole thing unfolds. You can turn there. We'll read a verse out of there. But let me just give you kind of the summarized version of what transpires in the first few verses of Acts 15. You have a group that shows up and says, you know what? If you want to be a Jesus follower, then you need to become a Jew first. If you want to really follow Jesus, then you need to follow the traditions of our fathers. You need to follow our Jewish traditions. You had one group that was saying that. And then you had another group that said, no, God's done something new. The law has been fulfilled in Jesus. We are no longer under the old covenant. God has started something new, and we are now under the new covenant. That's why you have 2 testaments in your Bible, by the way. Did you know that? Old Testament and New Testament. It was a new covenant. And Peter, in this meeting, right? So what happens is there's some churches down in Antioch, and there's some people that showed up in this church, and they're teaching, if you want to be a Jesus follower, then you need to toe the line. You need to follow the traditions. You need to get in step with everybody else and what they're doing. There's some people that showed up in Antioch saying that and teaching that and preaching that to these new believers that had just joined in there. And they're confused. These Gentile believers are like, what? I thought we're supposed to follow Jesus, not become Jew. What's going on? And so that's what they were teaching. And Antioch and Barnabas and Paul said, no, that's not true at all. That's not true at all. And so that church said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to send Paul and Barnabas along with some other local believers. We're going to send them up to Jerusalem. That's where the first church kind of started there in that area. So they had a lot of the apostles were still there. And there were people that had walked with Jesus and lived with Jesus and heard from Jesus and were followers of Jesus that were still there in that church. They said, we're going to send you guys up there and let's have a council. Let's have an association meeting. That's what we would use in missionary Baptist stuff. Worst idea they ever... No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, they sent them up to an association meeting to basically get word of, hey, how do we do this? What does the church look like? What is a local church supposed to look like? And they showed up, and these people, the sect of the Pharisees, so these people that were really hung up on rules, that had turned to follow Jesus, but still loved their rules, said, you need to still follow the rules. That's what they said. Paul and Barnabas were like, nah, Peter stands up and he says, wait a second. God showed me something and he sent me to the Gentiles and I had an encounter with a vision, with a sheet, and God was trying to help me understand that, hey, the gospel is for everybody. The gospel isn't just for Jewish people. The gospel is for Gentiles as well. He says, matter of fact, I had a conversation with a guy named Cornelius who was a Gentile who received the message of the gospel and placed his faith in Jesus and was instantly brought into the family of God and connected with a church right away. And it wasn't about following rules. So Peter says that. Paul and Barnabas talks about the things they saw God doing among the Gentiles. And then James, who is the brother of Jesus, stands up to speak. And so if you don't know, kind of put yourself in this place, James was one of the leaders in the Jerusalem church. He was revered and looked up to. I mean, he was the brother of Jesus, right? I mean, who else had a better idea of what Jesus was about than the brother of Jesus? Which is kind of interesting when you think about James, because he didn't even become a follower of Jesus until Jesus resurrected, which is pretty interesting when you think about that, right? So here's a good question. I heard Andy Stanley phrase this question one time, and I thought it was powerful. He said, what would it take for your brother to convince you that he is the Son of God? And I thought about that. I don't have a brother. And I thought, man, what would it take for, like, my sister? She's not, what would it take? And James says, basically, it was the resurrection. That was his proof that he is who he says he is. So James stands up, and he gets ready to speak to this association, to this group of people about the gospel. And here's what he said. Acts 15, verse 19. He said, we should not make it difficult for the Gentiles who are turning to God. I think this verse should be printed on everything we have at Cornerstone, personally. We should not make it difficult for anyone who is leaning in, who's considering, who's contemplating, who's being drawn to God. We should not make it difficult for them to follow through with that. We should not make it difficult for unchurched people to see Jesus in our churches. One of the saddest statements is to talk to somebody who walks out of a church setting and their conversation, the first thing they kind of see after the music's done and the message done is everything else is, wow, you guys have a lot of rules. A horrible statement. We should do everything we can to eliminate the hurdles, to remove the distractions, and to get rid of the attitudes that cause people who are turning to God to trip up. If people who are turning to God are going to stumble on something, let them stumble on the one thing we all have to stumble on. And it's the question of who is Jesus. Let them trip on that. Let us all trip on that. We all tripped on over that. But let that be the only thing that they struggle with and the only thing they stumble over. We don't need people asking, what are the rules? What's the dress code? What's the right Bible version? We don't need people distracted by tradition. We need people to see Jesus. So how do we do that? How do we stay on mission and not get derailed by tradition? Maybe a better question is this one. How do we become a church unchurched people love to attend? Because that's what I believe we're supposed to be doing. Right? How do we become a church unchurched people love to attend? Here's a first and incredibly significant step. We must make sure our guests know that we know they're here and we're happy about it. We make sure our guests know that we know they're here and that we're happy about it. In other words, we should always assume guests are in the room. Always assume that. What does this mean and what does this look like? It means we should never come across as an us insiders who have it all figured out and you outsiders that don't. Because here's a news flash. Those of you that believe you've got it all figured out, you don't. You don't. Matter of fact, you might have a little further go if you believe you've got it all figured out. I used to attend a church that had a sign, and maybe some of you went to a church with a similar sign, and it said, you are now entering the mission. Some of you went to some of those same churches. Here's why this is a really bad idea. Here's why that's a horrible idea. It's a bad idea because it conveys the thought that we're in here and they're out there. It conveys the idea, you out there are a mess, but we in here, we're the holy huddle. We've got our lives all figured out, but you poor suckers out there don't have anything figured out yet. It's a horrible idea. We are not that church. We will never be that church. You need to help us make sure we never become that church. It's not a us in here and you all out there. It's us. Because here's what I know. I'm not that different than any of you. No matter where you find yourself on the spiritual continuum, I'm not that much different than you. I put my pants on the same way. I get up at the same times you get up in the morning. I have frustrations at work just like you all, except I can't fire anybody. I've got all that. I've got the same stuff you guys deal with. You know what? Voices raised and doors slam in my house too. And unfortunately, I'm guilty of doing most of that. It's like we need a new pastor. That could be true. Here's the thing I've discovered. Here's the thing that I think many of us have discovered that are believers and followers of Jesus, and it's this. Following Jesus makes our lives better. It just makes us better at life. We've discovered something. And I'm not trying to cram it down your throat. I'm not trying to beat you up about it. I'm just letting you know that I've discovered something, that following Jesus makes my life better. And when I'm obedient and when I'm listening, it actually makes me better at life. And we want to, as lovingly and graciously and humbly as we can, invite you to discover the same thing. That's it. Here at Cornerstone, we're not trying to earn our way into heaven. We're not trying to earn our way into God's good graces. We believe that's already been taken care of at the cross, and that the Christian life is nothing more than a simple response to God's love and His grace in my life. That's all it is. It's not about towing the line. It's not about following the rules. It's about responding because of God's grace and His love in my life already as He transforms me and comes along and strengthens me and points me in the direction. So how do we do that? How do we become a church unchurched people love to attend? Again, we consistently assume guests in the room. Consistently assume guests in the room. One of the best ways to do this is to constantly ask ourselves these three questions. What do they see? What do they hear? And what do they experience? When people encounter Cornerstone as a local church, what do they see? What do they hear? What do they experience? Let's talk about what do they see. Here's a question. Do our grounds and facilities look like we're expecting guests and their children? Let me just share with you, hundreds of messages are sent before anybody ever sits down in a chair and hears a message. Hundreds. You see a lot of things that send a message. So is that the message? Do our grounds and facilities look like we are expecting guests and their children? Have you seen some of those commercials, you guys, where they talk about becoming nose blind? Have you seen those? Like, it's a commercial for Febreze. Like, if you become nose blind. You ever noticed that? You ever sat in your house for a while and somebody cooked up some sweet pizzas with garlic and everything else on it, whatever it is, and you're loving it, you're enjoying it, and then you go for a walk with the family or you take the dog, and then you step back in the house. You ever notice that? What hits you? Garlic! Why didn't you smell it 20 minutes before?
Or onions.
Yeah, because you know why you didn't smell it? It's because you were used to it. You sat in it all the time and just believe, well, there's no problem. Everybody else should just see it the way I see it and smell it the way I smell it. But then when you see it with fresh eyes or you smell it with a fresh nose, all of a sudden it's not right. You wouldn't do that. So let's think about that. If our mission is to reach out to people that are unchurched, what do they see? If we're going to assume and expect guests, then our facilities should look like we are expecting guests to show up. Let me just ask you a quick question. When does your house typically look best?
When there's no one there. When my mom comes.
When you're expecting guests, right? Your house looks best when you're expecting guests. Your house looks when you're expecting, so should ours. We expect people to show up every Sunday and to listen to a message from God's Word. And we need to make sure the message that they get that's conveyed isn't, one, we weren't expecting you to show up, and oh my goodness, we don't care. Those messages should not be the messages being conveyed. This needs to look like we're expecting guests to show up, and we're happy they're here, and we're happy they bring in their kids. Here's another question. Do guests see themselves? In other words, when people show up, do they see people like them? The reason people stick at a church isn't because of the preacher or the preaching. It's because they find somebody they connect with that's in their similar stage of life or maybe works in a place that they know a coworker from or they go to the same school or they hang with the same people. That's why they typically stick. It's not because of me or anybody else that stands up here and preaches every Sunday. The reason people stick is because they meet people who they can connect with. That's why we want a variety of people serving in a variety of capacities here at Cornerstone. We don't need just all the old people doing stuff. We want the old people doing stuff. I'm one of those old people. I want to be one of those old people doing stuff, but we need people at varying stages and from varying backgrounds and from varying ethnicities and from various cultures serving in various capacities because people are going to connect with you. And we want you there. And we want you sharing and connecting and having conversations. We want people to come to Cornerstone and see themselves. Here's a second question. What do they hear? What do they hear? Here's a question to consider. Do we have a good reputation in the community? Do we have a good reputation in the community? When people hear Cornerstone Baptist Church, what do they think? What comes to mind when that gets said or somebody makes mention of this people in our community? Do they see Cornerstone as a stakeholder in the community? I'm so glad to have been a part of and heard so many of our life groups serving in our community over the past couple of years. That's a great thing. We need to continue to look for those kinds of opportunities and take advantage of those kinds of opportunities. Here's why. Because, and I'm going to say something, and you're probably going to disagree with me, and that's okay. Here's why this is so important. I believe our reputation in the community is of greater importance than what we do on this stage on Sunday. I'm just honest with you. I believe our reputation in our community is of greater importance than anything we do here on Sunday. You may disagree with that, but I'll turn you to Acts 2 and encourage you to read through that, especially the last verse. When people hear Cornerstone Baptist Church, we don't want them to just think, I know where that's at, or I know someone that attends there. I want them to think, I'm glad they're in our community. I want people to think that. When they hear the name Cornerstone, like, I want them to think, man, I don't necessarily believe what they believe. I'm not necessarily a church person, but man, am I glad that church is in our community. That's what I want them to think. One of the things you can do to help people hear more about Cornerstone in the near future is to get one of these bumper stickers, window stickers. We're going to have more of these available to you pretty soon. Stick it on your car. And somebody has a conversation and asks, what's that about? You get an opportunity, hopefully, to tell them about Cornerstone and invite them to a service or invite them to a life group or invite them to an event that we're hosting. Something like that. Here's the bottom line, and I'll move on. You are our reputation in the community. You are ambassadors, not just for Jesus, but you are ambassadors for this local church, a local church who is trying to do what it does to make sure it becomes easier for people to come to God that are turning to God. That's what we're here for. And you're an ambassador to that end. Here's another thing under the what do they hear category. Is the communication biblically sound and truly engaging? Did you know that Jesus did more than just teach truth? Did you know that? He actually engaged people. You know how I know that? Because he told stories. There's one section of Scripture where he lays out like 3 parables in a row. And you know what he was talking about? Ultimately, he was talking about God's perspective of sinners. You know what he started out with? A conversation about sheep. And then for those that didn't raise sheep, the next conversation was a conversation about a coin that was lost. He engaged. He didn't just dispense truth. He engaged people. He engaged people in conversations. He had them leaning in. Are we rightly dividing the word of truth, and are we presenting it in an engaging and applicable way? Do people know what to do with what we say? Do people know what to do with what we say? I've been in churches where it's like a fire hose of truth. And I walk out of there, and you know what I think? What do I do with all that? Like, I just got hit with a bunch of truth. I'm sure he read the Bible. I'm sure that was true. But what do I do with it? Do people know what to do with what we say? If you've been here for any length of time, you've heard me say this several times. Application is everything. You can preach, teach, communicate truth till your face falls off, but if we don't give people something to do with it, they don't know what to do with it. It's just true. Is what we're sharing, is the communication biblically sound and truly engaging? And I think we're making progress that way. You know how I know that? We don't use flannel graphs anymore. Praise God, right? And people are like, I don't see anything wrong with flannel graphs. That's fine. That's because you're 85. I get it. It's fine. No, I'm not picking on you. I'm just saying there's other means by which to communicate truth. And it should be in a way that's engaging that people can connect with, especially who? Not insiders. Not insiders. We're not here to maintain the aquarium. We're here to be fishers of men, so we better fish with the right bait. And flannel graphs from the 1950s ain't the right bait. I'm just being honest, and I know none of you guys hate what I'm saying today, and it's okay. The problem is you have to love me. That's actually one of the 2 commands that Jesus gave you. So that's amazing. Isn't that cool how that all works out? Here's what James says, James 1:22, not this James, the other James, the one that wrote the part of the Bible. James 1:22 tells us that we are to be doers of the word and not hearers only. And then he adds this little tagline, deceiving yourselves. He's like, man, it's so cool when we go to church and we sit in a row and people preach at us and we feel really bad about ourselves and we feel like somehow we get credit with God because we felt really bad today, and then we go home and do nothing with it. James says you're deceiving yourself. You don't get any credit for that. The only credit you get is the changes that you make because of the application of God's word in your life and living it out. That's all of us. That's me included. Are we sharing God's word and God's truths in such a way that people lean in and leave with a clear idea of what their next step should be? Here's the thing. If you're teaching a class, if you're teaching in a youth ministry, if you're involved with conversations in a life group, if that's not happening, you are wasting your time and everybody else's. I love you guys, but I love what we've been called to. I love the mission that Jesus has set before us, and we better get on mission. We better get on mission. Here's the third question. What do they experience? Right? What do they experience? Was it genuine? Are we believable? Are we real? Are we authentic? Are you approachable? Are you likable? There's no place for hiding from people in this local church. We want to be approachable. We want to be likable. Here's a crazy thing, you guys, and I know you know this, but maybe it's worth saying it. People that were nothing like Jesus liked Jesus. Did you know that? People that were nothing like Jesus liked Jesus. He was approachable. He was likable. Did he say some hard things to them? Sure he did. But you know what they walked away knowing for sure? He cared. He cared. Are we approachable? Are you likable? People should like us. I believe we should be the most likable people in our community. You know why? Because we're followers of Jesus. You know what I don't think people should necessarily have to agree with? Is all this other stuff that we attach to Christianity that somehow we've attached but Jesus hasn't. Like, well, if they're going to like me, they're going to have to like my politics. Really? Interesting enough, Jesus never talked politics. About the only thing he said is you're supposed to pay Caesar what's his and give God what's his. And that's about as far as his politics went. And we get so wrapped up in stuff and believe that somehow we've attached this to Christianity. It's just like the early church attaching all these rules to following Jesus. The thing that they did in Acts 15, you know what they did there? They separated the rules from what following Jesus really meant. And we better do the same. I don't care if you're blue, red, Democrat, Republican. I don't care who you are. I want you to know Jesus loves you. He has a purpose for your life, and he wants you to follow him. That's all I care. I don't care where you see things at. And you know what I'm tired of? I'll be honest with you. Having conversations about stuff that don't matter like that. So I know a lot of you are like, man, I'm not going to talk to him in politics. Awesome. You will save me some time. So I love you guys, but seriously, I'm just like letting it go because I might be fired anyway or whatever. So it sounds funny, but I seriously, guys, I just feel like we waste our time on so much stuff that has little to do with drawing people to Jesus Christ. And I just don't want to be a part of church like that. Here's the other thing while we're talking about that. Do we respect other people's views and values? Do we respect other people's views and values? You know what I found out? Everybody's views seem right to them. Did you know that? Isn't that interesting? Like a novel concept. Everybody's views seem right to them. You hoped when you came to this place that people would respect your views and your values. I think we at least owe that to anybody else stepping in. Just because someone disagrees with our views or beliefs doesn't mean we should be judgmental or disagreeable. The Apostle Paul said it this way. 1 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 12. Here's what he said. What business is it of mine to judge those outside the church? Are you not to judge those inside? Honest statement here. Church people can be some of the most judgmental people on the face of the earth. But we were just reminded that that's not our job. We haven't been called to that task of judging those outside the membership of the local church. And Paul was speaking specifically of a local church. He was speaking specifically to the church at Corinth. We have not been tasked with judging those outside the membership of the local church. Paul says we should probably start by doing a better job of judging what's going on inside the church, and maybe the best place is to start with ourselves. And if we did a good job of that, maybe more people would be inside a local church. That's kind of the conclusion I come to. We're not here to strong-arm anyone into seeing things the way we see them or believing things the way we believe them. In other words, we should be attractive, not coercive. No one coerced me into trusting Jesus. No one ever coerced me into trusting Jesus. You know what they did? They loved me toward Jesus. One of my favorite verses is Romans 2:4, where Paul tells us that it is the kindness, it is God's kindness that leads us to repentance. Did you know that? It's His kindness that leads us to repentance, not His rules, not His stand politically, not His stand on Bible version. It was His kindness that leads us to Him and to repentance. We need to be a church that is looking for opportunities to continually build bridges and not barriers. Here's the last question under the what do they experience category. Do we respond quickly, directly, and personally? Did we respond quickly, directly, and personally? Whenever someone comes to us with a problem or an issue, did we respond quickly, directly, and personally? In other words, do people feel genuinely loved and cared for? Let me share something with you that you may already know. Most people don't show up to church for the first time because things are going great in their lives. Did you know that? Most people. Most people don't show up to church for the first time because things are going great in their lives. Oftentimes, people are either searching for something or struggling with something. And they need to feel loved and cared for. Many of you that are members here didn't come and keep coming because of what happens on this stage every Sunday. You stuck around because somebody actually reached out to you and loved you and cared for you with the love and the care of God. Somebody was Jesus' heart and hands to you. That's why you stuck around. So as we close this morning, if you're a member here at Cornerstone, I'm going to ask you to keep these 3 questions in front of you and in front of all of us. What do they see? What do they hear? And what do they experience? And if you could do this, you guys, help me with this. Try to look at it from an outsider's perspective a little bit more. Can we do that? Because I'm convinced that the church isn't just for church people. I'm convinced this local church has a mission, and our approach needs to mirror our purpose. What we believe we should be doing should be matched up with what we are actually doing and what it actually looks like when we come together and people are coming in and they're struggling with something or they're searching for something, that there should be an avenue and an environment in which they can feel comfortable and Jesus can speak directly to their need. And we don't throw up a bunch of other barriers in their way that prevents them from coming to Christ. James says, I believe that we shouldn't make it difficult for those that are turning to God. I agree with that. I think that's a great statement, and it's one that we should hold up in high esteem. We should not make it difficult for people who are coming to God. We shouldn't be concerned about what they wear, how they talk, how they smell, how they look, what their political beliefs are. You know what? None of that matters. You know why? Because none of it matters to Jesus. You know what matters to Him? Where their heart is and where they're going to spend eternity. And He wants that to be the focus, and that needs to be our focus. Please never forget that you are this church. As you go, so goes this church. Here's another thought. This church will never be better than its members. Just won't. So as people encounter this church, what do they see? What do they hear? And what do they experience? And you know what I hope the answer is to all 3 of those questions? Here's one of those moments in church where the answer really is Jesus. Yes, those of you that grew up in Sunday school, whenever the Sunday school teacher would ask a question, you just said Jesus and hoped you were right because you weren't paying attention. And that was before we had fidget spinners. We had other stuff that we were doing and doodling, and they'd ask the question, Jesus. That is the right answer. I hope when people see us, hear us, and experience us, what they're seeing and hearing, experiencing is actually Jesus. I'm going to put forth an invitation in just a second, and we're going to have our camp worship band close us out with a song, which I think is just fitting for this morning. They're going to sing a song called Magnify. And man, is that powerful when you think about our purpose here as a church. It's to reach those that are far from faith, to reach those that are far from God and invite them near. And the way we best do that is we magnify the one that's drawing them, the one that we want to continually point to. Let me encourage you this morning, if you're here and you don't know Christ, I want to invite you to step out and take that next step. Make that next step to ask Jesus to be the Savior of your life, to understand that He died on the cross for your sin, and He offers you forgiveness of sin, and He offers you eternal life. And that's all based on not your behavior, because none of us are good, not one, but our belief. What do you believe about Jesus? I hope you see Him standing there with His arms open wide, inviting you into a relationship, hearing the fact that He loves you, and that the next step for you is to experience eternal life in Jesus through faith in Him. By God's grace, through faith in Jesus, right? I pray if that's not where you're at, that'd be the next step. For the rest of us, if you're a member here, keep considering that we haven't been called to gather in this place to become the holy huddle that's incredibly comfortable. We've been called to reach a lost and dying world, and we need to be about it, right? All right. I'm going to invite you guys up, and then we'll pray and get you out of here. Thanks.
Well, I was going to say a lot more to prepare our hearts to sing this song, but I don't think we really need that anymore. But I will say, just shameless plug again for camp. If you haven't registered, you should definitely register. And the heartbeat behind this song revolves around the theme verse of what we're focusing on at camp, and it comes out of the book of John, chapter 3, verse 30, and it says, "He must increase, but I must decrease." So Cam and I put this mashup together, and if you're coming to camp, you're going to be singing this a lot, so hope you can learn it today. But I think it just reflects that heart that we need to come to God of just surrender and humility to Him so that He can become greater in our lives. So here we go. You guys can feel free to stand if you're able and join us. Set a fire down in my soul that I can't contain, that I can't control. I want more of you, God. I want more of you, God. Set a fire down in my soul that I can't contain, that I can't control. I want more of you, God. I want more of you, God. Set a fire down in my soul that I can't contain, that I can't control. I want more of you, God. I want more of you, God. Set a fire down in my soul that I can't contain, that I can't control. I want more of you, God. I want more of you, God. So take it all away. Magnify no other name. Open up my eyes to you. Take it all away. Magnify no other name. Open up my eyes to you. I would rather be. No place I would rather be. No place I would rather be than here in your love, here in your love. There's no place I would rather be. No place I would rather be. No place I would rather be than here in your love, here in your love. So set a fire down in my soul that I can't contain, that I can't control. I want more of you, God. I want more of you, God. Set a fire down in my soul that I can't contain, that I can't control. I want more of you, God. I want more, and God be greater than the worries in my life, be stronger than the weakness in my mind, be louder. Let your glory come alive, be magnified. God, be greater than the worries in my life. weakness and my mind be louder. Let your glory come alive, be magnified. Take it all away. Magnify no other name. Open up my eyes to you. Take it all away. Magnify no other name. And open up my eyes to you. And take it all away. Magnify no other name. Open up my eyes to you.
Father, we just thank you for redirecting our hearts to get it off of us and preference, God, but to lift our eyes and to lift our heart to you, the only one deserving of all praise and honor and glory. God, let that not just be true as it comes out of our lips, but may it be true as we live our lives, that we live our lives as in magnification of who you are. God, I just pray that not only do we take that personally, but we implement it corporately. That as a church of the Lord Jesus, that we continue to just try to point people to you, to see you high and lifted up, God, and be drawing people that need a Savior unto yourself. God, I'm just so grateful for this church family. I'm grateful that we can sit together and maybe not even always agree, but understand most of all that you love us, that you sent your Son for us, and you've called us into an eternal relationship with you through him. And I pray if there's somebody here that doesn't have that doesn't know you as their Father, that today would be the day that they would take that step. They would accept your Son Jesus as their Savior. They would accept that forgiveness, that free gift that you offer, and they would step into life. They would step into what real life is really all about and allow you to live out your life in them and through them. God, I just thank you for our time together in your word. Bless us now as we leave. Help us apply what we've heard. Give us the courage to do that as we walk through this week. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.